Okay, apparently we're live. You probably barely see us from the shine. So, introduce yourself.
Morning, everybody. I'm Matt Vanderzalm.
And I'm Dansaturner. Just going to test it out here, make sure that we have sound and everything. It looks like we do, but also be our first viewer of the day. Yeah, for everyone who is awake at 9 a.m., congratulations. I barely did it myself. But yeah, I don't know. I need to figure out there's going to be a certain time of day that I'm going to do these things more regularly. I mean, for now, it's just kind of been here, there, everywhere. Perfect. We got sound. We're live.
Good.
Okay. Well, Matt, thanks for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to have you here. You're my first real guest. And Thomas is good to have on, but he was just a few rooms away. So when I asked him to sit down and do a podcast, he said, "Yeah, I guess."
He's a guinea pig.
Yeah, and he was on. His friend as a podcast. Shout out to A Beer and a Movie, I think it was called.
Beer and a Movie.
And kind of just why I got started with the whole podcast. I kind of talked about a little bit last time was just I started listening to podcasts maybe about a year ago, and I started to think these people are great that they're putting all this time together to put these podcasts out, and it's great that I'm able to listen to them, but kind of got that mentality that I was becoming selfish, that I'm taking in all this information yet I wasn't giving anything back out.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought this is a good way to kind of make it a two-way street to kind of give back to the podcast community, if you will. And I don't want to have that famine mentality that if people are watching one podcast, they can't watch another. I think it's great. I think everyone should honestly have one, be able to express themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about too earlier about just building skills and being able to talk to somebody and hold a conversation for an hour and a half at a time, talk about things that are interesting, engaging, that people want to hear about, man. And it's a learn as you go kind of thing too. Even what you were saying before about what time should I post a podcast, man? You're always learning, and you're always learning new things through other people, and you're always learning how to build a better, business for yourself in terms of podcasts, man. So I think it's a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah. I wonder if I should start doing something every Monday at 6, but then it's kind of funny because then if you do the same time every week, you're even though it's obviously not to the same scale, but it's I'm competing with CHCH News at 6 o'clock every Monday. Wow, who's going to win the battle of the media, or InfoWars, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and you could be missing the same people every Monday too, who have that. I have soccer at 6 every Monday, right? So that's the other thing, right? So I think you got to mix it up a little bit, but
yeah, well, I need to get it to an online point. I think eventually I want to have it on the the Google Play podcast app and the Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So that way all the soccer moms at 6 p.m. on Mondays can listen to me and you while they're on their way to drop the kids off. You don't want to be watching a video while you're driving, but you can listen. Just keep those eyes on the road, soccer moms.
Soccer moms. No, yeah, that was the one thing too I noticed, because I started watching the podcast with you and your brother the other day on YouTube, but sit in front of your computer for an hour and a half, I guess, or bring your laptop or have your phone on. If you're traveling and stuff, you don't want to use data and stuff, right? So I tried to look to download it on the Apple Podcast, but it wasn't there yet. So that would have been
We'll get there soon. I haven't looked into this too much. I just kind of a few Google searches, but apparently it's as easy as uploading a YouTube video, that all you have to do is just go online. I'm sure there's a 1,000-page little thing that you click, yeah, I read, and then accept the terms and conditions, and then post whatever up on there.
You don't read them?
No. I heard, do you ever hear there's a story about a guy who he accepted some terms and conditions from some company. I can't remember what it was. Let's say it was his cell phone provider, and they ended up charging him something that he didn't closely read.
Yeah.
He ended up making his own terms and conditions and sent it back to whatever company it was. And in the terms and conditions, he put some weird clause. I can't remember what it was. It was something either the company had to pay him, or he owned part of the company by them accepting the terms.
Yeah.
And they literally just clicked the box saying accepted the terms, and
same thing.
Yeah. So then he brought it back to them. He's I'm not paying that fee you charged me, because I'm now own part of the company. And they're what? You signed this. And
was it legally binding though, is the question?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't even know if I read beyond the subtitle.
I don't even know if I read that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that thing. There's just a lot of information out there nowadays too, and everyone's so used to absorbing little bits here and there that it's tough to be able to have that skill to create information, to add to the wealth of knowledge online,
and retain information, man. I feel you absorb so much stuff in one day. It's hard to even remember what you learned the day before, or what you had for breakfast that morning. Or I was thinking before I came in, because I was reading a book, and I'm what have I been reading about in this book? Because I figured you might ask something about that. And I'm I can't even I can't even remember.
No, that is tough. Like sometimes you'll read a whole chapter and it doesn't really sink in right away. And then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, like that one. Like when you think of a certain situation, you can take from that wealth of knowledge you've taken and apply it directly, but just to sit on the spot and think what was valuable. It's hard to know what's valuable until you have to use it. Like it's hard to know how valuable a hammer is until you need to hammer down a house or
that's fair enough. Actually, that's
build a shed or something.
And I guess the things that really stick out are the things that you're going to use, right? So I guess it's kind of like read it, take what you will from it, and apply what you can, right? So what's relevant to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes you won't even know like how its full potential of how relevant it is to you until you apply it later on.
Yeah.
So this book, Tools of Titans, you brought.
Yeah. Shout out to Connor Overstrom. This is your book.
Thanks, Connor.
I've lent it to a few people, but it'll come back to you eventually, Connor.
Jeez, and I just finished reading Sapiens, and I thought this was a thick book, but geez.
This one's good though, man. It's kind of like a podcast where Tim Ferriss, who wrote the book, kind of has famous people, successful people come in and talk about. He has 3 different categories: health, wealth, and I think knowledge or wisdom. Health, wealth, and wisdom. And he has different successful people come in and talk about their daily habits, their routines, things that have made them successful, things that have made them healthy. And they kind of just give their feedback on books they read, activities they do. It's pretty interesting, man. There's a few like habits you can pick up here and there that I think are pretty good, or just to see what successful people are doing in their daily routines.
Well, I think what we should do is I'm going to add this to my stack. I'm going to put this, I mean, whenever you have a borrowed book, you always have that obligation to like read it before you or other books you don't have yet. Because I mean, you are like a library and, you got to respect the library.
Just return it in 15 days.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll give you a nickel if I'm late.
All right.
Have you ever read the book Sapiens, or have you heard about this one?
Never know.
So Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, sir, but it's pretty cool. It's called A Brief History of Humankind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it talks all the way back from like the first humans, like all the way back from like before Homo sapiens, like talks about like Homo erectus, Homo Neanderthal, all these different like types of like humanoid, human kind of like ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes all the way back from, I think, like 10,000 BC, and it just works its way up to like how humans evolved through different generations, different types of civilizations. Like talks about how we went from being like a hunter-gatherer society of like going from one community to another looking for certain types of food, certain types of animals, to going into the agricultural revolution thousands of years ago, to where people didn't travel as much anymore, but they may be bound to like, 1 kilometer square of land where they just watched for that same food that they would make all the time. And then it works its way up to modern day, well, to now, and even talks about like, well, where are humans heading from here? Like, what's the next step of evolution? Kind of talks about how we use cell phones now all the time, and that like having this tool has basically changed who we are as humans. Like, because one of the things that's interesting is that you ever hear about how what really makes a human unique, especially like Homo sapiens compared to like Homo erectus, or I can't remember, I think it's Homo ergastus was the first one that used tools. And that was like one of the biggest things they used to classify them, was just their use of a tool. Mm-hmm. So if that was enough to classify them, then, that's changing the lighting. That's making it worse. Okay.
Podcast in the dark. Oh, nice. That's not bad.
Let me just move this out. All right.
Anyways, yeah, you're saying the use of tools.
Yeah, and how like having like cell phones now, like I mean, everyone has one wherever you go now. Like it's kind of funny to think that having that can honestly be like the difference between what was a human and what is going to be a human.
It's the next step, man, in the human robot evolution.
Yeah.
We're just a stepping stone right now between it.
Yeah, because if you were to like with your cell phone, let's say you could go back in time 20 years and still have that same wealth of information that you have. And imagine that like Google still existed at that point, and that you had the cell phone towers able to give you that like modern day wealth of information, how advanced you'd be. Like imagine going back into like, for example, going into a classroom in 1990 something, and like everyone's using their calculator and you have your phone. Let's say everyone just assumes that you have like a calculator like everyone else. Yet you're able to answer everything. You get 100% on that test compared to everyone else.
Yeah, man. That just makes you wonder where everyone's going to be in like kids now in 20 years from now or 15 years when they're getting out of high school, going into university, how much further ahead they're going to be than we were, man, or we are even at this point in time. It's crazy to even think about.
But here's something interesting. Further in certain respects, but in others not. I mean, I like to think back to like even our grandparents. Like look, my grandpa was a farmer for most of his life, and like he didn't look like it, but like just he was so strong just because he had that farmer strength of just every day ripping those muscles a little bit, doing this on the farm, doing that on the farm, working on the grapes, working with goats, chickens, whatever else he had throughout his life.
Physical labor.
Yeah, and like so he probably isn't as capable as resourceful when it comes to like finding information about a certain topic or for a certain argument or something like that. But like he would be incredible with like any kind of like a muscular feat compared to like the average person today, or like take the average person of like his stature, and you know he'd be leaps and bounds beyond those people.
So you think there's going to be a disconnect between like physical activity and cell phone use in the future? Right?
Yeah, there's going to be some other things. I mean, we've even seen like how it seems to be that the younger generations are having troubles with communicating the old-fashioned way, just sitting down and talking. And you know, I think that's one of the unique things about yourself too, is that like you're very well communicated, very well connected in the community too, and like that it very much shows. And you still have that ability. I think that's another thing that's cool about like people. People born around.
Get out of here, Mom.
Yeah, jeez, I don't think Thomas outside fiddling around with stuff. So
messing with you.
Yeah, whatever. We'll figure out the lighting eventually. Still on just episode 2. Sweet.
Better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's fine. It's all about the voice. They just want to see that we're actually here, just to make sure this isn't just.
We are here.
We are wearing pants too, not like old radio shows or anything.
Pants are on.
Who knows where we'll go from there?
No.
But yeah. So our generation, I feel like it's pretty cool that we've been able to have like a certain amount of years in school where we weren't allowed to have cell phones. We didn't even have cell phones. I mean, when we were in grade 8, like I didn't have a phone. No one really had a phone, and it was good because it gave us that old school kind of like, I don't know, that old community where it was just everyone had to just talk to each other, the people in the room. I mean, there were times where I would just sit there and I'd look outside and wonder what's happening in like the schoolyard. Like, yeah, I can't wait to go run or play baseball or whatever.
Yeah, I think you'd use your imagination a lot more, man. You wouldn't spend your time on your cell phone looking at information, looking at videos and stuff like that. You'd be imagining things, thinking about what you'd want to do later that afternoon, thinking about your hockey game or your soccer game, right? Man?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, in a way, kind of reflecting on what you have to do later on in the day, which is, I think, a good skill to have. But yeah, we're at that weird age where we were the in-between group between technology and no technology, man. So I think maybe we're lucky that we still kind of have those.
Yeah, we can take a little bit from both worlds, I guess.
Yeah. That just makes you wonder what's going to happen in the future, though, you know, where they've always had this and they don't know any different.
I think as long as you understand that, and like because you've just even said that now, it shows like you have like a full awareness that this could be an issue. And I think as long as you acknowledge that and you're able to kind of make some certain steps to make sure that people still have those like old school kind of communication values. And I think the next generation will be okay as long as people realize this. Because I think what's happened is people are kind of caught off guard. Like, let's say someone who had a kid, let's say 5-10 years ago. And so maybe this person has gone through all of their school, all of elementary school and high school without a cell phone. Like maybe let's say this person graduated in like the year 2000.
Yeah.
Where, you know, maybe you had a flip phone, but like no one was really texting in the year 2000, I don't think. I mean, I definitely wasn't.
No, definitely not, man. That was the beginning of the cell phone era, I think.
And let's say this person, like, so it might not be apparent to them because they never had a cell phone when they went through school. And then if they're just the type of person that just immerse their child in having a lot of those technologies without even the thought that this might have repercussions later on, then there's not as much of a safeguard for trying to kind of preserve those old values, I guess.
I think you're kind of naive at that point, man, if you can't realize there could be potentially problems with anything. But what was I going to say? Where's I going to go with this? That you would be naive. Yeah, man, I don't know. I think it's difficult, but I think it's all about balance, man. And I think that's important is that you got to realize this is a tool, man. You can use it for good or you can abuse it. And like any tool, even like a saw, man, it can hurt you if you use it in the wrong way, right? So
yeah, I mean, if you use a saw every day, your hand's probably gonna get carpal tunnel. We'll just whatever. Leave the ones that do this thing. But yeah, it's same thing as like you said with a hammer, with a saw. Like, I mean, you can hurt yourself for sure. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
I think that there needs to be self-control too. Like, I'm really bad for it sometimes where like if I have my phone, even if like flipping it over is one thing to like hope that like you won't see the screen, but like even if I have it on silent, flipped over, sitting on the other side of the table, there's still part of me that's like, but like, who's there? Like, what are they saying? Like, maybe there's something I'm missing.
Better
Maybe
just
something...
check the weather quick, and then you're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, man, all over the place.
Do you know that feeling when you go into Walmart and you're like, I gotta buy that one thing? You walk in and like you leave and you're like, I didn't even buy that one thing. Like, I'm such an idiot. Like, I went to buy nasal spray. I ended up getting like toothpaste, toothbrush, shaving cream, like razor, and got home and was like, fuck, what was it that I wanted? Like, I don't remember. It's the same thing now with you go on your phone, like, I'm going to check the weather. And then next thing you know it, you're like 10 pages down on CNN, like reading about something that's happening in like some other part of the world. Like,
no idea what it's like outside right now.
Like, like it looks sunny down in Bangladesh. I wonder what it's like here.
Oh man, I'm the worst for that. I'll go on Google Earth all the time too and start like searching random places and just going on Street View. I'm like, I wonder what it looks like in Russia. There's nothing in Russia on Google Earth, but you know what I mean though. Yeah, you go all over the world and drop your little character down in there and get a Street View, man. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'll go on my phone to look at something and I'll see one thing about something else on Facebook and I'm like, oh, I wonder what it's like in that country actually. And then next thing you know, you're on Google Earth. Now you're looking at real estate of this place in India or something weird. I don't know, man. You go on these tangents all the time.
Oh, I love that. Like, you know, what's really funny is I don't know if you saw on Google Maps, if you go to Street View for my house, you can see my election signs are still out.
I saw you I saw something you posted that.
And I thought that was really funny because like, I remember my family was like, yeah, you should like really go around and like take a picture of all your signs. But like, I was just too busy campaigning. I didn't really have time to do all that kind of stuff. So now I can digitally do it. Thank God that Google was going around that day. So if you look around Niagara-on-the-Lake, you'll see everyone's election sign.
That's funny.
So I wanted
now you don't have to. Yeah, now you don't have to waste your time.
Yeah, and Google has this feature where you can actually look and see like, well, what was the last time that Google came by, and they archive all that information. I'm not sure how to do that exactly, but
so you could go back in a time machine, man, to the previous time before the election.
Yeah,
you see how things have changed. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, so like Google has that feature for like, I think it's for people in like a planning department. Like, let's say you're hiring a consultant planner to like work in a certain like region. You can like go back in time, like based on the last time that Google had like an image there, and you can see how things have changed in that area. Mm-hmm. Like, you could look and see things like, well, so the first thing that comes to mind is like, well, what wasn't there before? What kind of property was? I mean, you would hopefully have all those kind of documents to see like the history of all that.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, but maybe you look back and you see like, wow, there's like 100 homeless people on this street corner. Like, where did they go? Like, when they built this building? And like, you can gain a lot of insights from looking back at this information. So yeah, cool to see it's on there. Yeah, it's funny, like just driving around here, like it's, you know, it's a funny thing. You ever go on Google Street View and you're like, wonder where my car was at that time? Like, you look like it wasn't at home. Like,
what was I doing?
Like, my car was next door at Nolna's. I was probably like having some Nolna's.
A little bit of pasta.
Yeah,
pasta lunch.
Tried chicken parm that day.
Extra parm.
I wonder, like, what happens if it's raining and you're with Google Street View? Like, can they do that, or like, is it?
They definitely come back on a nice day, man. They don't want to make anything look dreary and dull.
And like, I know for now, there's actually a guy driving that car around. Like, to think that that's a job, like,
wouldn't be a bad gig.
Do you think that they have to have like an engineer in there though? Like, does it have to be someone who understands like what's happening with the camera on top and all that, or what?
I doubt it, man. I think it's just some guy who just drives around. No technical expertise needed. We just need a guy who can drive. That's like, it. G-class and you're good.
You think they pay him the same as like a Uber driver?
Less. No, probably minimum wage.
Much less.
Yeah.
He gets paid like, I don't know, maybe in Google stock, or like when do I get my first paycheck? Like, well, we know what you searched on Google, so you just drive.
You just drive the car.
We know the creepy things you look up at night.
No, they probably pay him all right, I guess, but I doubt they pay him too much.
It's gonna be cool when they get like a self-driving Google car, because like the thing is with like self-driving cars, the way that they have them like programmed, like they're supposed to be incredibly safe. That like if you were to like crawl on the road in front of it, that it would just come to a full stop.
No, I'm all right. I'll pass.
Well, I'm not gonna try that. Maybe I'll like throw a bag or something, see what happens, but. It's going to get to the point where you're going to have like just the software driving. And what happens if you walk up and you just put your hand out in front of it and stop it? Like with a regular car, a cab driver would come out and say like, well, you know, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of the way.
Yeah,
like, you know, and push you out of the way if they have to. But if there's no one in the car, you could mess with that. Like that Google car could be your bitch. You could honestly just.
You're not going anywhere, buddy.
I wonder if you could almost like, don't do this. And I'm never going to do this.
Do not do this.
How easy it would be to like hijack a self-driving car. Like, I mean, I know some of them don't even have like a cell phone in it, but like, let's say the Google car was driving by. You went out and you put your hand in front of it and stopped it, and you had like your friend like open the door if it was unlockable. Can you imagine how sad it would be, the first guy to break into a self-driving car to try to hotwire it, and he just gets in, he's like, where's the steering wheel? Like, oh,
there is none. No, you'd have to have someone in there for security purposes, I'd imagine, man. Like otherwise, I've never even thought about that. That's crazy to think about, man. You could just stop a car in the middle of the road and do whatever you want.
Yeah,
no
totally.
repercussion.
I would just go up to it just for fun and just pull up its like the windshield wipers, just have them up there when it starts. But actually, they don't even need windshield wipers because no one's driving that.
That's fair enough, man. They'd have to have a little camera wiper on the front.
That's yeah, you're right. Now I'm curious, like how the heck do self-driving cars work in the rain?
Dude, they're nervous about it in the United States too, man, with the self-driving trucks, and they think that's going to replace all the truck driver jobs, man. They're nervous that automation is just going to replace everything. So that's the whole universal income thing with the United States.
Did you watch that Andrew Yang?
Yeah.
So
of course.
So Andrew Yang is he's going to run as a Democrat in the 2020 election. So right now he's still facing off against every other Democrat presidential hopeful. Right now, one of the biggest ones, Bernie Sanders. Funny thing, actually, I want to go and become a part of the Bernie Sanders campaign. So
can you?
I don't know because they get mad about Russians influencing the election. What if we're Canadians? Yeah. So for those, I mean, I'm sure 90% of the people who are watching are probably from Niagara-on-the-Lake, Niagara region, or at least like Ontario, and know that like Niagara-on-the-Lake is basically like a 10-minute drive to the States. Like from my house, if I headed to the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge, if there was no traffic and the guy at the bridge was having a good day, probably like 15 minutes for me to get over to the States from here. And people don't always acknowledge this, but sometimes the policies that happen in the US have a greater effect on us here than even our own government can. I mean, for certain things like, climate change is a big deal. I mean, especially for our generation, like you have to make sure that some of the largest countries in the world aren't polluting like crazy. Like, so I would rather have someone who believes in climate change in the White House than Trump.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And windmills cause cancer.
That's hilarious, man. They probably do though.
Well, they're vibrating all the time. I mean, like, I think
it's probably not wrong. That's the worst part about it, man. But it's like a lose-lose, right? Almost. But I don't know. I don't want to speculate, so I don't know.
I mean, I feel like if you sat on a washing machine for a few years, it'd probably give you some.
Everything gives you cancer. That's.
Yeah, it's almost like, what do you want to give you cancer more or less? Or like, there's certain things like
pollution.
Windmills. Everything will, but it's like I accept that my laptop has Wi-Fi in it, and that it probably gives me a little bit of cancer. And, I try not to hold my cell phone too close to me. Usually I try to take it out of my pocket. It's bad for that today. Absorb a little bit more. But I haven't been hanging around any windmills, so I'll probably be okay for this while.
Well, there's a few close by.
Yeah, but the windmills we have, I wonder if, because like a lot of the windmills that we have in Niagara-on-the-Lake are the ones that like try to regulate the wind or try to like change
the temperature for the grapes, right?
Yeah, to like prevent
the frost.
Do they also prevent like, I guess, extreme heat? Like, is that possible? Like, can they whisk away like a hot front, a warm front?
I would imagine so, Max. They do go during the summer months, so it has to be for some purpose, right? So I'd imagine it had to be to cool them down. I'm not a grape expert. I have no idea.
We got to get an agricultural expert on here one of these days to answer some of our agricultural related questions. So if anyone's listening wants to join, feel free to send me an email or just comments down below. We'll get you on here to talk about windmills. But yeah, we were talking about Andrew Yang, and he has something called the Freedom Dividend, which is basically just a paycheck you would get once a month. I think he said starting at about $1,000 a month.
It was $1,000 a month.
And that because of automation, as Matt said, there's going to be a lot of truck drivers that are going to be out of work in like probably the next 5 to 10 years, I would imagine. And when this happens, we need to make sure that we have some sort of a way to keep these people well fed. But also there's going to be automation across a lot of different industries. I mean, we're seeing a lot of it right now. Even manufacturing has so many roles that are being taken over by machines. If you ever looked at a video of like what goes on in an Amazon warehouse, it's ridiculous how many like robots they have going around like grabbing things. And like, sure, it creates jobs. There's some jobs, but the point of it is to like reduce the labor role. I mean, most businesses, so many businesses are just so labor intensive. A lot of businesses, that their highest cost is just their salaries of all their employees. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so many companies have the incentive to invest in this technology to try to remove all those bodies. I mean, you look at why Uber is spending so much money on this autonomous technology. Same with Lyft, like any of these like kind of massive ride sharing kind of companies.
Yeah. Fast food, man.
Yeah, because there was someone gave the argument that like if there's going to be all these jobs created with AI, then they're going to create AI related jobs. Like, so that is true to a certain extent. You'll need people to be able to, like, I guess, look at that software and to be able to.
But those aren't the same people who are doing the frontline work in the first place. I think, man. I think there's a whole nother animal to retrain these people who, I don't want to say have no skills, but have maybe lower skills if they're working at a fast food restaurant or they're working as an Uber driver. They don't have very technical skills in the first place. To retrain them to have these technical skills related to AI and programming machines.
It's tough to relearn all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I am only 23 years old, but I can already tell the difference of like trying to learn something when you're like 14 compared to now. And it's not even that like our ability isn't as good as it was. I mean, maybe that is like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
But the biggest thing is when you're young and you start something new, you're going to suck at it. But that's with almost anything. Like I have friends that are my age that they'll pick up a guitar for the first time and they're going to suck at it at first because it takes practice.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
The difference is when you're young, you're so naive with so many things that you suck at most things. So it's okay to suck at playing guitar because you're 13 and you've still got time to learn. But when you're 23 and you start, it's a little
fuck it.
Yeah, you're like, well, I'm so good at riding a bike. I don't want to play guitar. I'm going to go do what I'm good at.
And I'm only going to ride a bike.
Yeah, and take this to the extreme. Take this to like, let's say you're 60 years old and you don't have much savings. You need another maybe 10, 15 years of working.
Yeah.
And you are like, I'm so good at driving trucks. Like I can go, 1,000 kilometers straight without having any kind of an accident, which is it's a big skill. I mean, I would probably fall asleep after like 600 kilometers. I've done the drive to Ottawa too many times. And so imagine you're so good at driving, like you are the king of driving, but then it's like people were saying to truck drivers, well, learn to code.
That was a big issue, I think. Too,
and
right?
Again, like you're going to suck at coding. I mean, I just got into it like about 2 years ago. And like, I wouldn't say that I'm amazing. Like I understand like certain fundamentals of like building an algorithm or like how to problem solve some of these things
all over my head.
But the thing is, I felt weird because it's like, man, like I'm 21, like I'm so good at riding a bike, but I can't. Yeah. But I can't code, and it's just tough.
It's kind of discouraging almost too, man. Especially at that point in your life too, where you said you're 60, and you're like, what's the point of learning to code? It's going to take me 10 years, and by the time I'm going to be retired anyway. So it's
and like people don't have those easy resources to do that too. I mean, like I know that they do have so much online. I mean, most of what I learned is available online, but that's another obstacle. People that are, 60-year-old truck drivers, they might not be as tech savvy. They're traveling on the road all the time. They might not have like the same amount of time, the internet access that someone like me is lucky to have.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true, man. They probably, like you said too before, we're in that lucky generation where we grew up with the technology, being able to access any information at any point in time. Whereas people before us, man, they didn't. And if they didn't adjust and make a shift to technology coming into play, then I think it's a lot harder for them to, I guess, find the necessary resources to learn new things and use it to their advantage almost in a kind of way, right? So
yeah, and you probably have this. I mean, I remember there's even like certain apps that would come out on the phones that people would start to adapt. And I remember when Snapchat came out thinking like, why are people using this? Like I just got used to Facebook and Instagram. Like I don't want to adopt this new technology. And I was honestly like, oh, it'll be a fad. People won't use it anymore. And I mean, a few years later, and people are using it more than ever, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because, like, I can see why other people wouldn't want to adopt technology because I even had that with Snapchat.
Yeah. Man, I feel the same way. It's funny you brought that up because I literally just deleted Snapchat because I thought it was a waste of time. I think, for the most part, man, I think posting things on social media is a waste of time. I think Instagram, a lot of the time, is just a way to flaunt, look at me, I'm better than you.
It's that window too. It's like that edited window of your life.
Yeah.
So,
you always want to make yourself look the best version of yourself you can be, man. I think anytime someone or you or me or whoever posts, you got to think, what is the message I'm trying to send? Why am I trying to send that message, man? And there's a lot of times I look at posts and I'm like, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily know the reason they posted it, but in my mind, I think, are you just trying to show off? Like, what is your intention here? So
I feel like if I was prettier, I would probably post more. Like, I mean, it's nice to get a lot of likes on something and be like, yeah.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is a good way of looking at it. Like, with anything that you do, is this going to cause a net positive or a net negative in the world? So like with a post, like putting something up, like, is this going to be inspiring to someone? Then yeah, I should post it. If the thought that comes to mind is, oh, this is going to make my friend so jealous,
envious,
like,
yeah, exactly.
then maybe it's not worth posting.
But people like that. That's the worst part, man, is that people want to like those people who, oh, look at her life, look at his life, it's so much better, I wish I could be like that, I want to be like this person. But meanwhile, it's all probably not true. That's the only thing, man. But I think your mentality is right. Like, you should be trying to, I guess with posting things, you should be trying to think, how can I inspire, get someone else to do something better with themselves, if that makes sense, right? So
and like it should never be selfish, basically. I mean, ideally not. Ideally, you want to have some sort of a post that's going to make other people want to do something. Like when I went to Europe last summer, I didn't post a single picture on Instagram when I was gone, for a few reasons. One of the reasons is just kind of don't want to just have this perfect open window of where I was, to like kind of wanted to be able to enjoy the trip and then just have it just be one nice big memory when I got back. And then also like, it's kind of that thought, like, I don't want to just make people jealous of where I currently am. Like, it's kind of like, to be able to share those pictures after when you get back, it's kind of like, well, I was there and I'm back now and we're having this conversation. It's like, you could do the same. You can go out and come back, but something about when you're actually away on another continent, another country, enjoying yourself. I feel like it's almost like if I was sitting here and I was eating like this big cake and you're sitting across from me and you're like, that's a nice cake. And I'm just like, yeah, it is. And I'm eating it in front of you. Like, but it's different if I had the cake last week and you were like, Dan, had any good cakes lately? And then we could talk about it.
The difference is you were asked about it, man. No one was asked in the terms of posting pictures, man. I think it's just like a conversation. You don't go in a conversation and, oh, I went to Italy. Yeah, I went to Italy. It was so great, man. I had a great time.
And that's almost what it is when you're just posting when you're there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that too, man. It's almost like a cocky, I don't want to say cocky, man, because I think genuinely people post things when they're excited about them too, man. But it's just, I don't know. I think a lot of it's fake, and a lot of people get caught up in the likes and look at these scenarios, right? So
and like that's been causing a lot of issues with our society. I mean, because let's say you have someone and once a week they do something that like is, I guess, like beneficial, something that seems like it's tough, something that seems like something to be idolized about. Like, let's say once a week someone goes out to goes and, I don't know, feeds cats milk, or just goes around the street and just feeds homeless cats. Like, and that's the only thing they take a picture of. But then let's say this person the rest of the week is like horrible, mean, kicks puppies, but then once a week post pictures about them like helping cats. Then all we see is just, wow, that person's so nice. They probably help cats every day, when in reality they're kicking puppies 6 days a week. I mean, this is just an extreme on the spot kind of example. Person. But it creates this window, and that makes people think that like that's all it is. But then the wall comes down, you see beyond the window, and it's like, holy cow.
People are only seeing what you want them to see too, which isn't true. Which is nice about a podcast too, man, because I think you get more of an insider perspective onto how people actually are, right? And it's not them choosing what they post. I guess it is in terms of they're choosing what they say, but I think you can ask personalized questions that you can get to the bottom and get to the truth of the situation, right? But
and I love that it's live. I love that it's on the spot. I mean, most people come back and look at this at a later time, but it's just, it's something nice about just having that raw conversation. It's on the spot. Like, I mean, I have like a list of like odd questions to go through. I haven't even gone through one of them yet, to be honest. And it's just nice to be able to have that instant reaction.
Yeah, it's holding a conversation, man. And I think it's really good. Like you were saying earlier about conversation skills, social skills, like being able to do this maybe is something that people might not necessarily be as good at in the future. Or maybe I'm completely wrong too, right? We never know, right? So
yeah, I mean, maybe the microphone's not even working now.
God damn it. Are you on?
Yeah, this thing's been pretty great actually, because when I was like just looking at how other podcasts do it, and so like I always kind of comment or compare to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Of course. Is there any other one?
He's got this amazing setup where he's got like those big arms with the microphone that goes right up to each individual. He's got the full headphone set on, so you can tell like how loud you need to be and whatnot. I mean, for right now, like I always apologize for like the sound quality is probably not perfect.
This is how you start, man. You start something and then you work on it, and when you want to improve, you improve in one area, man. Say, okay, I want a better microphone. Okay, I'm going to work a little bit and get a better microphone.
Yeah.
Now you get a better microphone. Okay, now I want better lighting in here, and now you work.
Now I got to get a better spot outside of this.
One thing at a time, but you got to start somewhere, man. So you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, I don't think.
Yeah, like I was talking about how by the time I get to episode 10, I want to get a better webcam rather than right now. Just this is on my 2014 MacBook Pro, just a little webcam that's up at the top there. But yeah, I want to get one that's a little more HD so you can see all the freckles and all the I don't know, little scars on our faces. See all my tattoos.
Thick eyebrows.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Those Vanderzalm eyebrows.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be really cool looking back to see how much this has changed. Like Joe Rogan has something like 1,200 podcasts now, and I've been actually watching his first, like I think I'm up to episode 8 now.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like the way back.
So you went back to the beginning, man.
Yeah, and like his first ones were, believe it or not, worse quality than this. I mean, at that time it was
technology was way worse.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, jeez.
So. Like the webcam was way lower quality, and it was just the internet. He streamed them at that time too, but like it was just so low quality. I mean, this has a bit of a lag on it, but his was like really bad. It was like very kind of choppy.
Oh, kind of choppy. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, it's funny, the amount of difference in technology. But no, you have the right idea, man. Just like small incremental improvements. How to get better? How can I improve my podcast to the best version of itself?
Yeah,
it could be right. So
yeah, and like I know at first like it's. It's going to be kind of awkward, and it's not going to be as like smooth. It's not a well lubed up machine quite yet.
Well-oiled machine, no.
Yeah, oil sounds better than lubed. And it's going to be really cool to look back on this and like to think of how many hours of like just conversation you can accumulate on this too. Like, I guess looking back, like it's always cool to see like, oh, here's a picture of us in high school, or oh, here's a picture of us in elementary school. Like whenever that happens, it's like always a cool thing to look back at. But that's just like the thinnest layer you can get. Like, unless you made the picture black and white, there's not much less info you can get. But these conversations, you can come back and see where was my
mindset out of that time? What was I thinking? It's probably funny, man, because you'll probably look back at this 10 years from now, and not saying this about you, but wow, I was an idiot. Or what was I thinking at that time? Man, I do that all the time too. I say things that I think are true at one point in time and think back about them or look into it a little bit more and realize how wrong you were at that time, man. I think that's part about learning and growing too, right?
Like we're still kids too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. I feel like I'm gonna have that I hope to have that mentality my whole life. Like by saying that, like we're still kids, I just mean that we're still learning and that like there's still so much that we need to experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I just always want to have the mentality that like there is more to learn. I don't want to be in my 50s, 60s, 70s and think I know all there is to know, or like what's important I already know.
No, that's the worst mentality. No, man. No, I think one of the things I want to do for myself is just continuously learn, man. Like even if it's about new things, like for example, I'm making a garden, man. So now I'm learning about gardening, which is kind of weird.
Awesome.
I don't know. It's fun, man. Just something different, right? Like you can never stop learning. You should always be trying to, I guess, incrementally make yourself better and better every day, whether it's like small fun things like picking up a guitar or like planting a garden, or what can you do to learn, man? Like the thirst for knowledge, I think, is really important. Continuously making yourself better in some way or another is really important to do. And I think you're 100% right. You don't want to be 50, man, and be so stuck in your ways and so closed-minded that you don't want to learn anything else and think you know everything already, man. Because I think once you do that, man, you die in a way almost, right? You're going to get left in the past and not be able to adapt because you're going to be the 60-year-old or 50-year-old truck driver who doesn't want to adapt, man, because you already know everything and you already think, oh, there's no way I'm going to lose my job or there's no way I'm going to learn this skill. But if you have an open mind where you want to learn and you want to be better, maybe you can adapt and change, right? So
I also see everyone's mind is like their own unique individual economy in the sense that you have to have it continually keep growing, like a capitalist economy. And that the second that you stop growing that economy, all of a sudden things start to fall out of date. And you also have to compare your economy to someone else's. It's the same thing as like, let's say Canada just stopped innovating and their economy wasn't growing anymore. The GDP was stable. And I'm not even saying that it went down, but it stabilized. All the other countries in the world are going to keep doing what they're doing. They're going to keep innovating. They're going to keep striving to have that stronger GDP and to be growing. Even if you stay the same, you are now a smaller economy with respect to those other economies, and you're not going to be able to compete. things that are in other countries are now going to be more expensive. You're not going to be as
You're going to
powerful.
be left in the dust. Absolutely, man. I think you're 100. I think that comes down to being complacent, man, and you're happy with where you are. And I have this job now. I don't really need to learn anything else. I know what I'm going to do every day, and I'm not going to get better. And then you get left in the dust, man. You get forgotten about, or you're happy with where you are, but you're never going to get any further ahead. So I don't know. I think it's when people start becoming complacent, or their economy starts becoming complacent, that other economies kind of take over the world, right?
Yeah, and that's something that scares the crap out of me is like, we can only really see where we are now. Even right now, what we see is only like maybe partially true. Like when I say what we see, it's like what we interpret, what we think of like of our current situation in life. And it's scary when you look at someone that's like maybe 10, 20, 30, even the same age sometimes, that is just in a rut doing the same thing. And those people that are unhappy, but they continue to do the same thing. I'd never want to become that. It
No,
freaks me
absolutely, man. But I think it's hard to change, though. And how do you get people to change? Or maybe they don't even know how. That's the worst part, too. Yeah, I'm in a rut, but how do I get out of it? I don't know. I've never had any experience before. I've never been in this situation. But that comes down to wanting to learn, man. Take some initiative, maybe read a book. I don't know. It's talk to people, man. But I think people don't know how to do that sometimes, or maybe they don't have the resources to. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Because if you're someone who, let's say you, for a living, I don't know, let's say you grow pigs, like you just have a little pig farm, you got your 10 pigs, and, I'll drive by and see you with your little pig farm, and I'll think, I don't think I'd ever want to be a pig farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I was a pig farmer, I don't think I'd be happy. I would want to, like, constantly be expanding that farm or I have this, like, that drive, or like that, maybe not even that drive, but just like that, like voice in my head saying, no, do more, do something else. But to that pig farmer, that could be like his bread and butter.
You're 100% right, man.
And like, who am I to say that he shouldn't be having that pig farm? I mean, I think that if you're happy doing what you're doing, even if it's, it's like that saying, like, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, then you should be doing that thing.
No, actually, you're 100% right, man. Because there's people are at different points or stages in their life and have had different experiences in which, I know for me personally, and probably for you right now, we're both young and we're both ambitious and we both want to do as much as we can and learn as much as we can and become as successful as you can. But I think there'll be a point in my life where I just say, man, I just want a pig farm.
Yeah. I wonder if that'll happen. Like right now, I'm probably like, oh, that's a scary thought. But, maybe we haven't seen what we need to see still to make us want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like going back to that pig farmer, like let's say he's like, I hate pigs, I don't even like bacon, like why am I doing this? Then that's where I want
Jewish.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like, oh, this is horrible, like people hate me. But like I would want to come and liberate those pigs and say, liberate the pig farmer and say, look, do something else. There's other things to do. Like I'm so afraid of becoming that person, because I guarantee if you ask those people, hey, like I hear or I see you're unhappy with like your job and your life, your situation, like what you're doing, and you say like, were you always like this? Like most of the time they'll probably say no, like just one day I realized I was here and like now this is just how it is. And
yeah, I picked up this job 5 years ago. And next thing you know, I've been doing it ever since, kind of thing, man.
Yeah, or like I got a mortgage and like how it is, and
you're stuck in it. But how do you get out of that? And especially if you want to, man, I think it comes down to people. How do you get people the resources to make changes in their personal life, right? And how do you get them to understand what they are and know about them? I actually got in a big argument in class the other day about this unintentionally, where the argument was about poverty and what is the root cause of poverty. And one girl said that it's lack of opportunity in Niagara, and then of course I had to put up my hand and say, actually, I think it's the complete opposite of that, or I think it's not that at all. I think everyone has the same opportunities, and as soon as I said that, man, what? Are you kidding? Everyone has the same opportunities. But here's the thing:
we gotta get that girl.
Oh man, I ended up apologizing to her after, not because I think I was wrong, but just because I didn't intend to start an argument.
Yeah, I could see that her mindset was so narrow, you ruined her day.
It was crazy, man. Like she turned on me, then like 3 other girls turned on me, and then people start backing me up, and it started this huge.
That's awesome.
But this is the point I was trying to make, is that I think there are the same opportunities for people, but people don't know how to utilize those opportunities. How can I go back to school to learn something new? I'm 30 years old. I have a pig farm. Like, I'm not sure. Is there anything I can do? I don't know about grants. I don't know about funding. I don't know about adult schools. So how do you get people to know about these ways to make themselves better? How do you inspire people to want to make themselves better, if they even have that drive to, is a whole nother question, I think. So.
I've got a really good like kind of analogy for what you're saying. So let's say there is at the end of my street here, like east-west line, like let's say 5 kilometers down the road, there's a job fair, and that they say we're going to hire like the first 5 people that come down here to say they want a job. And so let's say I go and I leave my house from 5 kilometers away. And let's say there's someone that lives 10 kilometers away that also wants that job and is going to head there. That same opportunity exists for anyone that comes down. They said first 5 people that come down can get this job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do have to understand that there are certain situations where it is a little more difficult, or it takes a little more work, takes, a little more gas, a little more time to drive down to get to that job fair. But let's say they knew that the job fair was at 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say that person that lives 10 kilometers away can't get there before I get there? Like,
right.
So, I mean, the same opportunity exists. And I totally understand that opportunities sometimes are more convenient for some people than others. But
there's different starting points, man.
Oh, yeah. And that's my point, is that there's different starting points in a lot of different respects, like socioeconomic factors and things like that. But that, like, your point is still absolutely valid, that that same opportunity, that same farmer that wants to hire those 5 people, it exists for me or you another 5 kilometers farther down the road from there.
But how do you get to the point where you're not just giving everybody? You're trying to make things equal, but no. I don't even disagree with that necessarily, man. But it's like, how do you get it so you're not just giving the person who's disadvantaged, giving them the opportunity? How do you get it so you're making things, I guess, as equal as you possibly can, given the circumstances, but you're not giving the opportunity away to the person who has a disadvantage in it, right? Like,
like you don't want to make an entire welfare state where you have just people coming down and just getting their paycheck and getting their welfare checks every week or every month. I've never gotten welfare. I'm not sure the intervals that they come in, but
I believe it's bi-weekly.
So you get your bi-weekly paycheck from your mailbox money, as some people call it. And what happens is people just become so used to that, and they just almost feel like it's just the government paying me back. But
yeah, man. But I think it's different for everybody too. They were just talking about this on Joe Rogan the other day. So where it comes to when it was with what was his name? Controversial Ben Shapiro. Yeah, controversial guy. But anyways, he was saying it's with the sense of community, when someone lends you money who you have more of an obligation to pay him back, kind of thing. Yeah. Right?
So imagine this. Like, imagine if, let's say, you got $500 bi-weekly from your welfare check. And it used to just say, I don't know, government of wherever, like, here's your check, and that's who it's written by. But imagine if attached to every check was a picture of somebody who actually, like, let's say we took a picture of Jennifer, the veterinarian, and it has a picture saying Jennifer paid like $5,000 into like this fund that you've drawn from, and you've drawn $5,000 this year. Jennifer has to work this many hours a week. This is how much she would be able to take home, but we took this much to give to you. Please, like, give back to Jennifer. Do you think that would make a difference?
It's tugging on their emotions, man, which I think is very important. And making people want to change their attitudes. But I don't know, man. It's different for everybody. I think if you're on unemployment or welfare for the right reasons,
like you're still seeking employment, or if you honestly are disabled and you can't work, I think that you should deserve help. Because let's say you and I walk out of here and both our legs fall off. And
then you start, if you post that if you post that picture on someone who genuinely does need it, then you're giving them the guilty conscience about it too. That's the only thing, I think.
But could that be like a motivator for them? Like, those people who are actually looking for work actively, like, would that be a good thing though? Would that, like, it would help them get out and start to look for work?
You could do that. I don't think you can do that, man. I think it would be too much of a guilt factor for the people who genuinely cannot get a job, and every day they're getting a picture of Michelle or Jennifer, the veterinarian, and like, she's working hard. Why aren't you? And you're like a quadriplegic or something like that, man. Well,
I guess that's almost like for people who are, we should like almost separate that. Like, if you're on disability, then that should just be that. You maybe don't get
that's a whole other animal.
Yeah. But then if it's like you're on unemployment, like, I don't know. Do you think that would make people say like, well, like, sorry, Jennifer, but I like your paychecks. Like, I'm just going to keep doing this.
I think that's going to cause a whole nother animal of problems, man.
I want to make like a small experiment of this. So like, maybe just do something where we set up like set up like a little shop, like a loan shop. And imagine like, so having like a money mark kind of scenario. And this is where you probably would want to test it, because when you test with like a whole government of people, that's probably going to be a little bit sticky. But if you just attach a little letter that maybe it wasn't even like a real person, but like when you get those cigarettes packages on the back, it says like sometimes they show pictures of people dying. I don't know if those are actually real people or if it's just like someone set up in like like a studio just to portray that like this is what could happen to you. Imagine if they did the same thing where it's like it's not a real person, but you bring in like Tony the plumber and the same kind of thing. Like you just show like Tony works and he has to pay this much into it for you to enjoy this. But imagine doing that with like a money mark kind of thing. Like I know that's tough because it's like a private entity and the money's not just coming from taxpayers at that point. But like I want to do some sort of an experiment to see if that the group that is given these portrayals of like who the money's coming from would be more likely to find a job or to pay back after.
I think it would, man. This is something we learned in this. I was taking this change leadership class pretty recently, and it had to do with people don't respond well to cognitive appeals, but they respond better to emotional appeals. So when you touch someone's emotional side of things in terms of, oh, this is Tom the plumber or whatever, he's working this hard. When you hit their emotions and then you make it relevant to them, that it makes people want to change their actions more than as if you did a cognitive appeal. Like, I don't even know what a cognitive appeal would be in this situation off the top of my head, but it comes down to you have to persuade people's emotions in order to persuade their mind, and showing the picture, putting that background letter of someone who is doing that might appeal more to them to want to make a change. I think. But I think that would still be, I get where you're going with it, but I think it's still kind of like controversial to put a background information. Well, this guy's working hard. Why aren't you? Well, I'm looking for a job, man.
You know what? We have to start with like a Nunavut or something, like really small community people. Like I don't even know the situation up there.
Yeah,
I know like the Canadian government just pumps a lot of money up there to make sure that it's still Canadian territory and that the Russians don't sneak on over and get on Nunavut.
I think it's a lot of Native people who live in Nunavut as well, man. And
Iqaluits or what?
Yeah, Iqaluit's the capital city of Nunavut.
I know Eskimo is like the new N-word up there.
Is it?
I think so.
I'm not sure what they go by in terms of names, so I'm not sure.
So I just want to take a minute and just go through some, like, I made a bunch of like random questions for the beginning, but just to kind of get a better idea of who Matt Vanderzalm is. Okay, Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, it's got to be Coke, man.
I can't even taste the difference. Like if you did like a blind test, I'd be lost.
I don't even drink pop, man. Like very, very rarely, so I don't care. But I guess I've always had Coke around the house or whatever.
I like the polar bears.
The polar bears are nice too. That might be it.
And it's the marketing is like 90% of it.
Yeah, Pepsi.
Are you more of a coffee or tea guy?
Big coffee guy. This will be my third cup this morning, and it's 10 a.m.
Yeah,
9:40 or something like that.
And Tim Hortons or McDonald's coffee? Depends on the time of year.
I prefer the taste of McDonald's coffee, but I don't know why I always go to Tim Hortons, man. Just when I associate,
feels more Canadian, even though it's owned by Burger King now. I think
it doesn't matter, man. Tim Hortons is Canadian. I don't know. I just associate coffee with Tim Hortons. I don't associate coffee with McDonald's. McDonald's is lunch. Tim Hortons is breakfast.
Probably from like all your like early hockey days, and maybe it's just like hockey's got to be like one of the most Canadian feeling things ever. So like whatever thing that gets associated with that gets bundled into that like nice Canadianness, and we love things that are Canadian. So you gotta love your Tim Hortons coffee.
Gotta stick with Tim Hortons, man. What about you?
Well, so I mean, like, actually, we both used to work at McDonald's.
You're biased too.
Yeah. So, McDonald's coffee, it's better if you're getting a black coffee, I find, but something about like that weird taste you get at Tim Hortons is good when you have cream with it. But like as like the actual coffee itself, probably McDonald's. And then I kind of mentioned this last time about their weird reward system that they have like battling on between the two. McDonald's, you get a sticker for every drink that you get. When you get 7 drinks, then you get a free coffee. But at Tim Hortons,
they got the reward cards coming out.
Yeah, and it's not even per drink though; it's per transaction. So if you bought 10 coffees, that's only 1 point towards a free coffee.
Dude, I just got this crazy idea for Tim Hortons or McDonald's. Whoever wants to use this, I'm giving it to you now. About just having a pay per month plan for coffees, man. You pay $30 a month. You can go get as many coffees as you want, because I think that the extra revenue generated by people, everyone's going to want to pay. Oh, I'm just going to get a $30 membership to Tim Hortons a month and get whatever coffee I want, man. They could just generate like an insane amount of revenue for the company. But I don't know.
We just have to find the restrictions, because it's not like another coffee for my buddy, another coffee for me. Like it'd probably be like one. Like you probably.
Well, I guess like free coffees for McDonald's, man. When you go through free coffees, it's one per person in the vehicle or whatever, right? So
many subscription services today, but that's funny that you bring that up. Like, because it seems like there's so many things these days that are all going to that kind of subscription basis. I mean, like even just like the difference of like what iTunes was to now Apple Music. Yeah, that'd be really interesting. There's probably a lot of terms they'd have to do to like stop people from like abusing that too much.
I don't even think you'd care. I think everyone would get it.
Yeah.
Would you? I'd probably get it.
I probably would, but I would always look for a loophole. I'd look for a way to like get unlimited coffee.
What are you gonna do though? Like what? Get it?
For my whole office.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's why we got to figure out. It's probably like one coffee per visit, and then you have to scan a card that maybe is void for another 6 hours.
One a day or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Like every 12 hours you can go.
Just an idea, man.
Well, if you guys want to use it,
better not take it.
The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Man, not a big fan of either.
Oh, really?
No, I never really dove into either one, man.
I'm definitely a Beatles guy.
Beatles guy. Why?
Well, I got into it when I was in grade 8. I don't know, just started listening to a lot of the Beatles. This friend of mine had the entire discography of the Beatles, so I had every single song downloaded, like every album. Just got really into it, and I liked the movie Across the Universe. And there's something really interesting when you look back at the whole John Lennon story, like, you know, how his super fan ended up killing him at like such an early age. And it really makes you interested in, like, it always makes me wonder what other music could have happened had he still been alive today, or like would they ever got back together. And I think a lot of that kind of makes me think like how, like, I don't know, how timeless they are.
I wonder if his death sealed their fate as one of the greatest bands of all time, though, and if had he continued on, maybe they would have lost that reputation. Maybe, because that seems to be what happens, man. You die and then you become the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for advertising, it's a great thing because, like, you know, I'd rather pay this dead celebrity's, well, the person who owns the rights to that celebrity to go do this commercial, like when they like CGI them in, or they just use like old clips of them, and like Jimi Hendrix with Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they do that is because Jimi Hendrix is dead. He can't go and like break the law next week. He can't get, you know, arrested or be part of this the Me Too movement or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it goes to who's the demographic you're trying to target to. Who relates to Jimi Hendrix? Oh, like people in their 40s, 50s, right?
Yeah, for the target audience.
Yeah, so you're going to use someone they can relate to, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that you're probably right about that. Like, you know, too many other bands, it seems like they jumped the shark. Like Metallica jumped the shark for sure. Like they just kept making too many. And Jump the Shark is the reference to Happy Days. There's the one episode where it was like, I don't know, like the 15th season, like the show should have ended by then.
And they keep dragging and you're milking the cow, and the cow's already dead, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, and the Fonzie ends up jumping a shark on jet skis in the ocean. It's just like, really, this is where the show went. And Metallica kind of did that. Like they should have stopped, I don't know, like maybe 20 years ago.
Never stop Metallica.
Yeah. Sorry, Metallica.
I like Metallica, man. So I'd take Metallica out of that question.
All right, fine. Next time I won't. Okay, red or blue?
I used to be blue, man. I switched to red. I'm red now.
I was the other way.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger, I really liked red. I think I just copied whatever color my brother liked.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I'm going to be independent. And this is
blue now.
Yeah. Blue is so good.
Blue shirt. I'm wearing a blue shirt too, so I mean.
Yeah.
I'm bi-colorful.
Bisexual colorful.
I'm bisexual and colorful.
We got to make a shirt that says that.
Jesus.
Bisexual and colorful. Apple or Android?
Always had Apple. Never had Android.
Oh, well, there's another difference. I'm an Android. Ford or Chevy?
That I don't know, man. I guess I'd have to go Chevy. I have a Pontiac, so it's GMC, Chevy, all the same thing.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Beautiful American made.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Tesla. I like thinking that like Tesla is technically like American muscle. Like it's an American
muscle. I don't know.
American electric.
Yeah, I think Tesla's gonna take over though, man. You're right.
I hope so. I mean, like I was talking about it a little bit in the last podcast about how I think it was like Norway, more than half of the passenger vehicles they sold in the last quarter were electric. And I think a quarter of that 100% were like a quarter out of all vehicles, including gas, were Teslas.
Yeah.
So like that's huge. Like that's crazy. And like that's overseas too. Like they have to ship all those cars all the way over there.
I think it's the affordability factor though, man. They're just so expensive that it's not
viable yet.
Yeah, for the average person to be able to buy a Tesla as their family vehicle, like how can you justify that? Hey, I'm going to spend. I don't even know what the lowest price model is, but how am I going to spend like 80 AVGs on a 4-door car? Yeah, the Model 3. I mean, it's finally I don't even know if these ones have shipped yet, but they're like 45,000 Canadian plus. Like, I mean, once you have like the delivery charges and everything, you're talking probably like 50 few thousand at least for like, and that's the baseline like. And like a baseline Tesla still probably has a lot more tech than most other like cars, even with like an upgraded package. But
like you don't get your enhanced autopilot or anything like that. So like you feel ripped off. Like you're driving a Tesla, but it's like a tin can Tesla. Like someone's just been like stripped out of it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm driving a used vehicle. It's like $2,000. So whatever, man. I can't afford a Tesla yet, but I'd like to.
Me neither. Someday. Well, and then there's so many other electric car companies or other companies that are getting into it now too, that like it's gonna be exciting when you actually have like
some options.
Yeah, like when there's like 1 or 2 cars of every car company, or like a lot of car companies, what they're doing is they're taking the cars they already have and they're making an electric option. I mean, Ford kind of tested around with that. They have the Fusion Energy, which is like, I think you get like 100 kilometers range, and then after that it's gas.
Okay, that's kind of different, right? But I don't know, man. When it comes to electronic cars, I think it's going to be the Apple Samsung battle, man. Like, Tesla versus one other opponent or something like that. And then there's going to be a few other small guys, but not as recognized by people, right? I think Tesla's
such a head start.
Yeah, that's the thing too. But usually, I guess people who have head starts often they fall and someone else takes over too, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at IBM. I mean, they're still around, and they definitely had to shift, but they're not the crazy like computer.
They were the company before, right?
So. Yeah, and like I guess even I think it was Apple came out after Microsoft, and I mean I know they're both still obviously massive companies today, but
yeah, Apple came out in 1990s, but then started really becoming big, I think, early 2000s with their technology.
Yeah,
1995.
I know Steve Jobs left and worked for Pixar, and then he came back, and that's
when they blew up, man.
Yeah, kicked into high gear. He had his like acid trips and had like all these visions for the iPod.
Yes, he was a tyrant apparently, just ruled with an iron fist. It's this way or no way.
Yeah,
I've got the ideas.
The thing I loved about him was the fact that he just wore like jeans and a black t-shirt or black sweater all the time. Mm-hmm. It kind of goes to show that like. And this isn't true for all cases, but I feel like there are a lot of times where people like try to overdress, like put in a full-on suit and like try to look as fancy as possible. If they don't know what they're talking about, they'll try to put a suit on so it portrays that. Yeah. But these guys are just so confident, and like they're just like, it doesn't matter. He could have went out there in just his shorts.
I think that's different with the tech industry too, man. But like even going to school, man, I have those thoughts to myself too. Some days, do you just feel like wearing sweatpants and whatever's? And you're like, oh, people shouldn't care what I wear, but the fact is people do care what you wear, and you have to just kind of make a little bit of
it's a trade-off, I guess.
It is a trade-off, man. But in his circumstance, does he care what other people think? Because it doesn't affect him because he's a CEO of his own company. So really nothing other people think will affect him. He's not going to not get hired because he doesn't drive well. I own the company. So
yeah, it's kind of like a guy who's only got $100,000 in the bank who drives like $300,000 car. It's like trying to make it look like he's got more money than he has, or like, maybe a borrowed loan or a borrowed car, compared to like, I don't know if you ever saw the video of Jeff Bezos in the 90s. And at this point, he had like tens of millions of dollars. So like, he's like the richest guy in the world now with like over 100 billion. But back then he was still like one of the wealthiest Americans with like tens of millions of dollars. And he's driving around with the guy from 60 Minutes in his old Honda Accord. Nice. And it's hilarious because like the guy's sitting in the passenger seat. He's like, so you own how much of Amazon? He's like whatever he said, like 95%. He's like, and the company's valued at like $100 million. So you own about $95 million. And he's like, yeah, technically, yeah. And then like it zooms out and he's like, and we're driving in your old like 1990 Honda Accord. Like, why is that? He's like, what, you don't like it? It's not comfortable? Like, it's driving fine.
Yeah. What do you want from me, man?
I think that's awesome. Like that they could be like, it's like, I'm confident. I have built what I have. If you care about that, like my company's over there.
Get the hell out of my face, man.
If you want to have a conversation, be real. I'm here too.
Yeah, that's. I think it's hard though, man. Especially like being young, you got to find that in between where you don't want to come off as overconfident or peacocking in the sense that you have something that you can't afford. But I don't think you want to give the impression. I guess you shouldn't care what other people think in the first place, but I think it's good that you give an impression that I care about my car. I wanted a decent car. I care about my looks a little bit. Where I actually took some effort to, get dressed or shower or shave or whatever today or whatever. But it's hard. But in the grand scheme of things, you generally should only care about what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's hard in a society that's controlled by other people.
Yeah, because I mean, like, look at every kind of a real estate salesman. Like, they all have to have this nice car. Because if you go and your real estate salesman comes up and they have like an old clunker, you look at them and like, this person probably doesn't know what they're talking about. Like this person obviously isn't successful in their field. Like they probably won't have insights for me that are
you already have
valuable.
that first impression.
Yeah, and it's huge. Like that's I've heard of people that when they get into home building or when they get into becoming a real estate agent or any kind of a salesman, the first thing that their mentor will say to them is like, get a new car, get a new suit, like gotta look good. You have to. It's kind of like that fake it till you make it kind of mentality.
Yeah, it is 100%, man. And it should it be like that? No. Is it? Yes. So I don't know how to get around that, right? But that's just the way society is right now.
Yeah, man. Like I can't believe we've already done an hour. There's a lot of things. Like I know you're busy today. I want to have you back another time.
Yeah, I'd love to, man.
I want to talk to you about how you became a volunteer firefighter. And I mean, I think it's on the 18th is that info session. I could be wrong on the date. I'll look it up again, but
I'm not sure myself.
There's an information session coming up for anyone interested in becoming a volunteer firefighter in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So I'll see you there.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go though.
Oh yeah, for
Good,
sure.
Man. Good.
Yeah, I want to learn more. Mentioned this previously, but like I just feel like every time I see those firefighters going by with the green lights on to head to an emergency, and I'm just driving home or driving to go get a milkshake or whatever, I feel like I'm just so lazy in that I am capable of doing this. I should be doing this. I should be trying to do what I can for the community.
It's like the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love when my house is on fire and someone puts it out. And
that happened though to you before, no?
Yeah.
Did your house your grandma's house caught on fire?
It was a few weeks ago, actually. We had a little machine. There was a dehydrator that set flame, and in the middle of the night, I had to go put it out. And like that feeling of relief when it's out, and like I want to be that feeling of relief for people. So yeah, I want to have you back to talk about that. I've still got a lot of other.
We didn't even hit any of these questions.
Yeah,
and I could talk all day though. That's the thing. I'm sure you could do the same thing too. Honestly,
I've got like even talk about conspiracy theories. Like Matt Vanderzalm, is the Earth flat?
It is.
Okay.
We don't know.
We've done that. It's confirmed. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I already put your Instagram tag in the description, but is there anything else you want people to visit? Any other thing you want to shout out to?
I'm looking for full-time employment, so if you have a professional company that is looking for someone in business administration, I'm your guy. Hit me up. You have my Instagram from Dan.
We've got one whole hour of an interview material here, so you can see the kind of hard worker that Matt is. And thanks for joining, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
All right, take it easy, guys. We'll see you next time.
Oh.